Good afternoon, and thank you for the invitation to speak at this session. Okay, for sure, greetings. So I'm going to share, Pawanka Fund is generally a global-led indigenous fund that works in different areas of the globe, the 7 regions: Asia, Africa, Latin America, Pacific, the Arctic, Russia, Transcaucasia, North America. And our work basically is really to support the self-determined development of indigenous peoples' initiatives. So we do direct access grant making to indigenous groups, whether they are self-organized, self-help groups, national or regional networks, in the different forms, even traditional governance institution. And so I'm going to share just a few examples on how some of our partners at Pawanka, how they're implementing and revitalizing traditional knowledge to build their own resilience in the different communities. And a key thing is that most of the initiatives they're doing is really supporting collective resilience building. Some are led by indigenous women, some are led by youth, and also collective organizations working in different communities. So I'm gonna skip that, all of that about Pawanka. If you want to know about Pawanka, you can come to me, but we also have a lot of information. So we work with more than 300 partners since the start, and in more than 50 countries. Now we are covering nearly 60 something, yeah. Basically, over the past year during the pandemic, we were able to facilitate our partners to do exchanges from the 7 socio-cultural regions, that is just globally, and they were able to share about their climate change work. And so we had an artist capture what a lot of the discussion revolved around in terms of the impacts of climate change on their livelihood and also what they were doing. And the key thing that came out of the discussions about how they're building resilience and the key issues. One is that even if they're living in different ecosystems, they're impacted by climate change differently. And also they had similarities in the terms of the impact to food, livelihoods, their lives also, and also the communal identity. And a number of the key challenges they identified as well was also issues of extractives and also response measures, but as well what they are doing really facilitating intergenerational learning, revitalizing their language, which are important when you're responding to climate change, and also that with the traditional knowledge they have to build climate resilience, they are also innovating. It's not a static knowledge, and they keep innovating as well, the knowledge, and also strengthening their land rights, as well as also ensuring the empowerment and also having ensuring this agency for indigenous women and youth in whatever they're doing. And that is one core pillar of Pawanka's cultural indicator. They have to really enhance gender equity, equality within their work. So one example, we have our partner from Indonesia, the West Kalimantan area, Aman Kalba. So it's a collective organization working with the Dayak indigenous groups. And among the indigenous women group, they realized that their customary territories were being, the forests were being impacted by other people, so illegal logging, and this affected access to natural resources that they use for craft making. As well, the knowledge on craft making was also impacted because there isn't any intergenerational transfer. But then it's a significant livelihood thing for the community, because that's what bonds and bring people, women together when they are doing crafts. But also in doing that, they are also conserving the forest because it's a significant material and part of their culture. And so indigenous women organized to strengthen their leadership capacity, build resilience, but also get access to this local decision-making space within their community, so that they're able to also participate in customary mapping because they understand where they get the natural resource for their crafts, and also engage and be part of the decision making, so they're able to get at the seat at the table to influence that. And they were able to also do an intergenerational dialogue workshop with youth, so that they can be able to transfer that kind of knowledge, as well as continue initiatives on conserving the territories, the landscapes and the forests as well. Introduce different initiatives even for kitchen gardening and so forth, based on traditional plants, and to support building of resilience. Among the Balega community in Mwenga region in the DR Congo, we have a partner, PFEVA, which is Pillar for Vulnerable Women in DRC. And these are community that are hunter-gatherers, so they're dependent on forests for the natural products, and timber. And this was impacted as well. Also, they had traditional variety of seeds that were also going extinct as well, but a few left within the community. And so they formed different associations for indigenous women and also indigenous youth to try and revitalize traditional knowledge for customary governance of Natimba forest products. So to allow for sustainable use of these products, and also to facilitate intergenerational learning of these, form business units as well, so that they can enhance the knowledge on how even to harvest, how to produce. And you can see in one picture there, they're producing and product that was something they never used to do. They had stopped and people did not know how to do. So they did that with the youth within the community, partnered with the National Seed Authority as well to try to get this seed protected, and also to facilitate that knowledge, and to see how to really revitalize the seed and have a community seed bank as well, for food security, and also to enhance livelihood through also the business units they are doing, and so to be able to continue the conservation of the community forests, and also enhance sustainable use, which is important for their food security and also resilience. Among the Aymaras from Chile and Argentina, we had a partner, Chasqui Nairampi, which is focused on research, but this is a collective also that brought indigenous women who were reviving 100-year-old tradition, where communities are revitalizing the knowledge of preserving food, because one challenge is post-harvest loss. And because it's a region where they come from, the Andes and so forth, they experience a lot of drought. And with the traditional solar technology, where they plant also the chuno potatoes, which is, endemic to that area, they're able to use traditional solar. They're able to use solar and also traditional technique of thumping and also drying the chuno potatoes, which can last up to 10 years. And this they've been doing with the community collectively, engaging the youth also in Chile and Argentina side to also revive this, because also it enhances food security and also helps in building their resilience, and also certifying the community who are members who are able to go through that process, because then they're able to become trainers of others to continue the training. So they were able to also give certification for that traditional knowledge through their network. As well, in Kenya, we have Latu Life Spring from the northern part of Kenya, and the partnership are working with the different ethnic groups, because there's a lot of conflict due to few resources, and also a gap in terms of how youth and children are learning on how to conserve the environment. And they focused more on really facilitating the experiential learning. So they are taking the youth to different excursions from different communities which are living within different areas and coexisting. And so children are able to be taught about their landscape, and when they come back, they're able to draw the landscape. They're taught about weather forecasting, how to manage their landscape, where other resources are located. And so when they come back, they're able to draw a map, and also that is to build agency of youth and children in really coexisting and knowing how to manage the ecosystem, and also they are taken through a cultural climate change exhibition center where they're able to document and also learn more about how to conserve and also to how their community builds resilience, especially since it's a pastoralist area community. So the rangeland management is a unique technology that they need to learn. And finally, I think it's the final one, I hope. We have our partners from Asia, which is led by young indigenous peoples, which covers the Asia region. And in the Philippines, what they did amongst the Cordillera is get different indigenous youth to come together and also use art and traditional art as a way to advance environmental conservation and also to build youth and children agency. So indigenous youth came for a week-long exchange in different workshops in different community villages where they did sand art and so forth to give their vision on what they want to do about the environment and conserving it. And so how to make traditional clothing, even traditional music, and relating that to work they're doing and how they can be also environmental agents and also what they want to see for the future and the present since they're the current and the future generation. The last one from North America, among the AYACs, we had the youth initiative where they are mapping, culturally mapping their territory, and this is really to learn the different areas where whether it's sacred, whether it's a cultural heritage site, and this is to allow them to also know how to continue conserving the landscape, and they were able to see to access from the museum some of the digital maps as well so that they're able to document and also work on the revitalization of their knowledge, but also link it to conservation to build resilience since on the coastline they were facing a lot of climate change. So I thank you and I'll respond to any questions.
Thank you very much, Edna. Now I will open the floor for 5 minutes. Anybody who has questions for Edna Kaptoyo or Dr. Sajal, I hope he's still online. So feel free. Any questions for Edna Kaptoyo? Thank you.
Could you please check maybe some online participants might have asked any question?
Yeah. No? We have checked and there are no questions online. Anybody from the audience? Okay. One.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your presentation. I just want to know more about which country and which kind of organization is eligible to work with your organization here.
Thank you for your question. So Pawanka Fund is a global indigenous-led fund. So it's guided by 10 leaders globally. So we don't do open call. However, how we do our grant making is guided by eight cultural indicators. So partners have to focus on issues of preservation or revitalization of traditional knowledge, whether you're working on climate change, whether you're working on health, traditional economies, language revitalization, and so forth. And the organizations we work with is globally. It's not limited to any country. We are now in more than 60 countries on the globe. So even North America, Africa, we have more partners, and we're expanding based on the resource capacity that we have. But the organization also have to be indigenous-led. And so we have leaders that do the due diligence and also invite partners to join us, who are already, of course, doing amazing work and different initiatives and do not have access to support that the others might have and in hard-to-reach areas as well. Yeah, so different forms, whether non-governmental, self-help group, indigenous women groups, community-based organizations, informal, then not like they don't have registration like traditional governance institutions like that. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And now we will move to the next intersectional. And at this point, the two speakers will be responding to how women are using art and culture as a transformative tool to bring about awareness and climate action. And our first speaker on this topic will be Alison Ticker, who is a founder of this and CEO of Julie's Bicycle. Alison established Julie's Bicycle in 2007 as a non-profit dedicated to mobilize actions on the climate crisis. Initially, it was focused on music industry, but now Julie's Bicycle works across art and is recognized internationally and has pioneered many of the solutions now widely adopted across cultural community. Ms. Alison.
Thank you, Aminatu, and thanks everybody for coming. And also thank you to Rosie Paul, who is, her title is the Chief Architect, Principal Architect at Mason Inc. in India, who's done a lot to curate this session. So thank you, Rosie, and I hope that you are happy with our stewardship. And the other thing I'd like to say is thank you to all the women in this room, a bunch of more beautiful people I have rarely seen. Here we all are, and we're showing up in what is actually quite a hostile environment. COPs are, this is a difficult space for us to be, and within seconds of coming into this room, Winnie and I had a conversation wondering what a COP might look like if we put women and culture as the chief organisers, and I suspect it would look a little bit different. Because we know that the climate crisis is on our doorstep. This is the first time I've been asked to talk very specifically about gender in the work that I do. So it's kind of interesting. It was interesting for me, and Rosie asked me to say something about my own journey, so I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Some of the stuff that I'm saying is going to be really obvious, and I apologise for that in advance. But it's just worth landing the fact that the climate crisis is on our doorstep, but the perspectives on and decisions about how to tackle it have been made by men, let's be really clear, who speak on behalf of a fraction of the population. The patriarchy is overwhelming. It's all around us, and we all are unwittingly and unwillingly coerced into it. It's understood that it will take 135 years before we close the gender gap. That is our great, 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 great grandsons and granddaughters who can look one another in the eye and feel that they share the same experience of the world. That is not good enough. It's just not good enough. And the patriarchy has turned up here at COP, big time. How many female leaders were at that leaders' summit? Of 110 leaders, and there were 11 women. That is profoundly non-representative, and I'm annoyed about it. I am really annoyed about it. Women continue to be marginalised from the political sphere because of gender stereotypes, lack of access, and deep and profound socio-economic structural barriers. I've always been a feminist, and that describes the way of understanding the world. We've heard so much of that this afternoon, again and again. We hear resilience, we hear stewards of knowledge, we hear women who are doing everything around finding solutions, and yet they're under the radar. Julie's Bicycle, my organisation, was set up really to find solutions, not to talk about this around art, not to commission art, but actually to come up with action-oriented solutions to the climate crisis in the context largely of culture, performing arts, culture, music, dance, and some of the built environment. It's a non-profit. It's a non-profit, and again, we're surrounded by profit in the COP pavilion, in the Blue Zone. It is a non-profit, and that is because purpose matters. I was trained as a musician, and before Julie's Bicycle, I worked for 15 years at an organisation called Community Music, based in London, working with young people who had been pushed out of the establishment and into the margins. We work with young people how to engage them back into a world that they wanted through the arts, through music, and that taught me the secret power of the arts. I also learnt how, during that period, I learnt how to put the values, which I consider to be feminist values, at the heart of creativity, the actual act of creativity. We've seen so much of it, again, with these incredible speakers. To put that into into an art form through of collaboration, creativity, respect, through improvisation. So I lost my classical training and I retrained. And in that way, I was able to understand how to inhabit these values through creative acts of solidarity and of resistance. Julie's Bicycle is largely run by women for all of these reasons. Over 15 years, we've employed 60 or so women on the core team and 5 very good men. This was not exclusionary, but of course it turns out that women are very good in this space. And this is reflected in our programs too. Julie's Bicycles program, Creative Climate Leadership, 3/4 are women, and this isn't just the people who come on the program, it's the applicants too. This is a program where we forefront leadership, and it's interesting that even in that space where women are so often reluctant to take on that term, the term leadership, and yet are performing those roles all the time, that women or people of marginalised genders are still coming through. We see this, although we see this also in all our programs around climate justice, creative climate justice, because of course climate justice is fundamentally a gender issue. It is gender justice. All but one of our podcast guests, our production team, our creative climate chats, all of our curation around justice has been not just led by women, but also produced by women or non-binary people. So the work that we develop and celebrate is fundamentally, culture is about women. Not because we are women's organisations, but because the women, frankly, women and non-gendered people are seeking to catalyse climate actions generally and specifically. Because culture is rooted, and I think we've seen it again, in feminist values, which optimise our capacity for emotional as well as practical resilience. And these backbones, fundamentally, are the backbone of cultural intelligence. I want to land us briefly here at COP, because this includes policy and the measures adopted to address policy. According to UN Women, more than 150 countries still have laws that discriminate against women. These countries are signatories to the Paris Agreement. Women occupy the cultural space we need. They are the counter to the toxic, linear, and often bullying culture that is focused on self. It is not collective, and it's too often valorized by men. Culture is a disruptive force in these assumptions, and it does contain the power to transform. Cultural values that are crafted with respect and in relation to one another and to the planet are overwhelmingly represented by us. We need to include culture in policy. It needs to land here. And by default, even if not by design, you bring cultural values into COP, which are gender values. With that, we bring gender parity. Climate justice is gender justice, but we bring in culture the values of care and nourishment that are so desperately needed in this pavilion. I wonder, with the intergenerational, interconnected and interactive approach, people talk about climate action. Women are interactive by very nature. Is it because the culture that we so desperately need is stewarded by women, that it is not reflected in policy? I think that's a really important question we need to ask ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Julie. And now we will move to the last speaker, which is Lydia Wanjiku, who is the CEO of Lensational, and she is a sustainable development professional with extensive experience supporting and strengthening efforts to promote gender equality, inclusion, and climate actions across the global south. Lydia, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Aminata, and thank you everyone for being with us till now. I'm gonna keep it brief. My name is Lydia Wanjiku Kibandi, and I am the CEO at Lensational. And what we do at Lensational is that we work to amplify the voices of underrepresented women using visual storytelling and participatory photography. And the way that we do that is by placing the tools and skill for photography storytelling in the hands of the women that we work with, and this is marginalized women. Over the years that I have been working with women from all over the globe, from different cultures, different backgrounds, different nationalities, one of the most common threads that I always see in the stories that the women tell is the close relationship that we have with the environment. And as such, what we also observe is how they're being affected by climate change, but most importantly, how they are responding to the changes around them. And this really is the power of visual storytelling, that I, who is from Kenya, am able to connect with the experiences of women from Indonesia, from the Philippines, from Ghana, from the Caribbean, from South America. Indeed, the women that we work with are the ones, they're not only in the front lines of climate change, but they are at the first lines of climate change, as I had it well put this week. But what has been very interesting to learn from these women is that although they are the custodians of this wealth of knowledge in how to adapt to climate change, they often are not aware of the power that this knowledge holds in national and global conversations about climate change. And from our partners, the National Adaptation Plan Global Network, we learned that governments are always open and willing to hear from citizens and women from these communities. But the question has always been, how can they tap to those voices in a way that's creative and effective for dialogue? So, with this in mind, the National Adaptation Plan and Global Network has partnered with us to amplify voices of underrepresented women in national adaptation plan processes. And in this approach, what we did, which we have piloted in Ghana and in Kenya, in collaboration with the respective governments, is that we provided training and cameras to very underrepresented groups of women in marginalized areas in Kenya and Ghana. And over a period of 6 to 9 months, they received training on how to develop photo stories. And at the end of those 9 months, we brought them into the same rooms with policymakers from those countries. And I want to give you a small vignette of what was the power of this. You know, they walked in, the women walked in looking amazing and fabulous, and policymakers walked in with ties and very serious to do business and ready to leave after that. But what I observed after the stories and the dialogue that they had is that the policymakers had loosened down their ties, They were engaging the women, they were asking them questions. And one of the most important things that has stuck with me since the workshops is the recognition of this traditional knowledge and this indigenous knowledge that women use to cope with the changes in climate change and with the changes in climate, and how this knowledge can be used at a national level and how it can be scaled up. And I believe that this is just a very small part of the power there lies in this creative medium of dialogue and bringing into the same rooms governments and women who are underrepresented. And I believe that is a safe medium as well, that we're here to see the fullest potential of it. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Lydia. And we are running out of time, but we can have any burning question that we can address to Lydia and Alison. Any question before we move to the closing session? Yeah, we are out of time, unfortunately. But before we leave, I would like to say that we have one climate scientist who is a rapper who wants to close with a rap song for us. But before then, I want to thank all the speakers, both online and in person. And I also want to thank our interpreters and for supporting us for this session. And on Wednesday, November 16, from 12:30 to 1:30, we have another event on culture, art, and heritage and antiquities. So please come again and support us. Is Brickman here? Oh, yeah, he's right here. So he's going to give us a closing song. Out of time, so I'm sorry.
It's only a couple of minutes. Big round. So my odd job at the COP is that I attend many, many panels, and I listen very carefully, and I write rap summaries of everything that I heard. It bewilders me that I was asked to come to this one, but I was very honored. I feel like the wrong person to be platformed at the end of it, but I'm going to do my absolute best to amplify the voices of the women we heard from today. And try not to annoy the other pavilions. You guys in the mood for some rap? Culture, gender, and resilience. Also known as constant unaided female brilliance, inviting me to rap here, an exercise in silliness, plus trilingual exercise in linguistics, but I'm with it. The linkages are real and they're twisted, and they need to be made explicit if we're gonna fix them. So for my presence here, I really beg your forgiveness. I'm just here to see all these inspiring women uplifted. Okay, so maybe not quite, cause I'm not the only boy. We also did get a lecture from Dr. Sanjal Roy, a researcher who could help us understand this best. Gender climate adaptation evidence from Bangladesh. Dr. Roy broke it down in a few short chapters. Economic, social, and environmental factors, perfectly integrated, resilience builders, cultural sustainability. That was the fourth pillar. Okay, wait, I get it. Me and Dr. Roy were not the only men on this stage. There was also Andrew Potts from the Climate Heritage Network, and it is really true that Andrew is often the only man in the room, but that's enough talking about the boyos. How inspiring was Edna Captoyo with the Pawanka Fund, supporting indigenous-run sustainable projects that are right now getting the job done. Women in the front lines, biodiversity managers, intergenerational cultural knowledge transfer, adaptation, and that holistic approach works. Women are the stewards of sustainable agriculture. Indigenous people, women leaders are the keystone. Take it from Angelica Arias up in Quito. If it's transmission of knowledge, women are working it, from the art of harvesting to the traditional herbalist. Plus, in her room back down, I saw peacock feathers. That is often all the contribution of men is. Those women are awesome. Me, I'm just talking, jibber-jabbering over these beats. I'm peacocking. But rapping at least is work that I can handle. It's not quite at the level of Aminatu Gambo from Cameroon, a human rights defender. I mean, at least she's someone I can celebrate and center. If I had a nickel for every male that was being fickle and failing to put women in the middle, I'd be a rich bloke. This pickle is difficult, but at least I can big up Julie's bicycle and the likes of Allison Tickle. Me and Allison in a freestyle cipher. Solidarity between us. We're both creative improvisers. Improvising is something that I could do all day, but so could las mujeres construirse en hombres. Women building without men. Inspirational. I learned about it from Elena Carrillo Palacios with Colectivos Zampopo. Women acting local. I did have translation issues. I don't have much Espanol though. Women behind the lens, changing all the focus. So lensational. They're changing the locus. A wealth of common knowledge that they can speak to. Thank you for the work you do, Lydia Wanjiku. To learn about it here was a massive honor. Loosening men's ties from Kenya to Ghana. Resilience and gender. Historical wrong mender. This is a sacred space. I'm just honored that I could enter. It's all about culture, plus gender, plus resilience. Also known as constant unaided female brilliance. Inviting me to rap here, an exercise in silliness. Plus the trilingual exercise in linguistics, but I'm with it. The linkages are real and twisted. They need to be made explicit if we're gonna fix them. So for my presence here, I beg your forgiveness. I'm just here to see all these incredible women uplifted. Thank you. One more time for all the panelists, ladies and gentlemen. It was amazing. I learned so much. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Have a lovely rest of your day.